Well, back home to local matters now, and there's movement at the stations, with sheep rustling or duffing making a comeback across the state. It's a cruel blow to farmers recovering from drought, and there's an added insult. The most likely culprits appear to be either other farmers or people with an inside knowledge of stock handling.
Consistently, it's after hours. It's either a small truck, trailer, backs up to the fence, the ramp goes down, the dogs go out. 2 or 3 minutes, they're in the back shut, and they're gone.
It is a sin, and it hurts people.
There's an emotional side to it too, where you can't be too careful. You've suddenly got to be a bit untrusting.
After years of drought and lousy markets, things are looking up on the land. Rain has fallen, lamb prices have risen, but now Ross GLEESON faces another foe. Someone has been rustling his sheep.
You can spend the best part of 12 months looking after your animals, seeing that their welfare is okay, and yeah, well, it's like somebody helping themselves to your weekly pay packet. You just got to go through that gate.
Around January, Ross GLEESON lost 35 sheep from his property just near the Victorian border. They were worth about $7,000, but in terms of the lambs and wool those sheep could have produced, Ross GLEESON puts his loss at $35,000. And Narracourt Police Sergeant Steve BOWLEY says he isn't alone.
There's been at least 11 cases. Total value at this stage is around the $200,000 mark. That's just for the Limestone Coast area.
And it's just since last April. The government says there were almost 600 cases of stock theft between 1998 and 2009, though there's no breakdown of how many were sheep or cattle or even farm dogs. York Peninsula and the Limestone Coast are hotspots, and not even the local MP is immune.
My son, who manages our property now, about 2 years ago believed that he had 100 lambs went missing overnight. He spent a bit of time, checked out the fence lines and everything, and you know, talked to the neighbours, and he was convinced at least that those lambs, somebody came and helped themselves.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Just why rustling is rising becomes obvious at the weekly sheep sales. Glen KEIL has been coming to them since the 1950s. He's buying lambs for a butcher, and today he'll pay big money for them, up to $200 each.
Nothing like it. It's a culture shock, you know, these prices. Why? Supply and demand. Our sheep herders' flock is very low at the moment. We're not able to produce enough for the requirements of our markets, domestic and overseas.
Out in the shops, that's putting the shock into chop prices. Out in the paddocks, farmers and police say it's what's driving rustling.
Absolutely, there's no doubt about it. We've seen this before. When stock prices have gone up, there's always a spike in thefts.
But the real rate of rustling, Steve BOWLEY argues, is hidden, shielded in part by an Australian tradition of revering rather than revealing rustlers.
There's almost a certain romance to it of, you know, duffing sheep and all that, but the reality is it's just theft, and it's taking people's livelihood.
Waltzing Matilda and the Jolly Jumbuck.
But farmers too often don't do themselves any favours. Steve BOWLEY says it's clear that the crime is committed by people who know how to handle sheep. A city dweller wouldn't have a clue. But no one wants to suspect another farmer. Out of the 11 cases around here since last April, only one has been solved, and that was by chance.
They actually found their stolen sheep at a local market, but they knew the person that stole them, so they actually organised outside of the police to pay compensation for it, which we don't exactly approve of that sort of transactions. There's not a lot we can do about it. It's just indicative of perhaps the attitude when it comes to stock theft.
But it is the very nature of the beast that makes sheep rustling such a tough crime to solve. Unlike stolen TVs or computers, sheep don't have a serial number. What they do have are PICs, or property identification codes, ear tags that connect individual animals back to their farm.
You just have to take the ear tag out. If you had a farm or a PIC number, you'd just put your own in.
Yeah, it's very difficult to solve. First, you've got to have some knowledge of stock, and truthfully, most police officers, unless they've worked on a farm, are not going to have a lot of knowledge of stock and different types.
The new Victorian government is looking at a specialist police stock squad to deal with duffing in that state. The Liberals here insist South Australia must do the same.
We do need a stock squad. We need a dedicated squad within the police force, because this is a unique crime and you need to have a very good working relationship with sale yard managers, with livestock agents and with abattoirs. So you need to have those relationships and you can only do that by having a dedicated group of professional law enforcers.
Police Minister Kevin Foley argues current animal identification schemes have cut rustling, and there's not enough happening to warrant a special stock squad. The Agriculture Minister, though, thinks the recent spate of thefts demands other solutions.
It may well be that we don't reconstitute the stock squad because this may be a temporary problem. We could look at an immediate task force proposition, but that, as I said, that's not my call, but I'll certainly be raising it with my ministerial colleagues.
But whoever chases rustlers, they won't get far without someone talking.
The information needs to come to us, and without the eyes and ears out there, we need them to ring us. That's the key to everything.